when you want to get started.
We're gonna go one more minute. Still got a few folks trickling in. All right. So, welcome again to PowerShell Community Call. Happy to have you all here. First things first, we're going to be talking about the PowerShell 7.1 Preview 7, which did release about a week ago, 9 days ago. Yep. Brand new release. This is the last preview release before we start into release candidates. So we'll be releasing another release candidate next month, followed by another release candidate possibly in November before our GA, or in October, excuse me.
Are we planning on releasing our release candidate this month and then another release candidate in October, and hopefully SimShip with .NET 5 GA in November, which is their current plan?
Excuse me, I got left shifted on my months, but yes, thank you. So I will write that up. Do you have anything else to add on the 7.1 preview, Steve?
No, I think the only thing I'll just add, like as you mentioned, like this is the end of our previews. We made some decisions on experimental features being non-experimental. There's an issue that Joey had open on the Powershell repo. Take a look if anyone wants to provide feedback. But the main thing here is really continue to use PowerShell 7.1. The release candidate that hopefully will come out. I don't want to guarantee anything, but hopefully maybe like next week or so, is expected to be what do we call it? Live ready. You know what the term is? Go live, which means that same as .NET 5, we will support you in production. So if you want to use 7.1 RC1 in production, then go right ahead. That's how we're going to get. Like we believe it's going to be ready, so use it. And if you have major issues, we'll support it. Meaning that we'll push out a servicing release if needed sooner than RC2, which will be expected probably around the third week or so of October is my guess at this point in time. So this is really kind of like the last chance to really kind of give us that feedback before we really close down 7.1 and start looking towards 7.2.
Thank you, which is a great transition to a agenda item that I forgot. So PowerShell 7.2, we've already started to do some internal discussions, obviously, about what's going to go into PowerShell 7.2 in terms of things that we want to prioritize. This obviously gets heavily influenced by the community. There's going to be a number of contributions that the community will be proposing that we may be taking during 7.2. We really have a strong desire here to, and I'm excuse me because I'm going to try and talk as I type here, but we have a strong desire to really split the sort of overall release into 2 6-month periods. So we're on an annual release cadence now. We want to ship out 7.2 approximately a year from when 7.1 GAs, the 7.2 GA. So what we want to do is take sort of the first half of that release cycle, or the first half of the previews, which is a roughly 6-month period, to do as much of the sort of feature work as possible. So really, any experimentation that we can do to sort of get that out of the way. If there are breaking changes that need to be made, or for instance, Cindy will be touching on this more later, but like PowerShell Get, we want to ship PowerShell Get 3.0 very first thing in the 7.2 preview 1, so that we can gather as much information as possible on what that changeover is going to be like. And then as we move into the second half of the previews, we really want to use that more for bug fixes and sort of stability, determining whether these features should graduate out of experimental features and become sort of stable features in PowerShell. And so, I think you'll start to see that sort of division where we try to do more of that creative or sort of, experimental work up front. Similarly, we are very, very close to introducing a new governance concept in the repository called working groups. And I will go back and touch up these notes here. But basically, the idea of working groups is that we have sort of smaller PowerShell committees that live in the PowerShell repository that are fielding more of the initial feature proposals via issues, right? So instead of in the past where we sort of have this PowerShell committee is sort of this jack of all trades who makes all these design decisions on everything happening in the PowerShell repo and in the RFC repo, and getting brought into sort of technical discussions on specific topics. We really want the working groups to sort of work as subcommittees or sort of advisory committees where a lot of those feature proposals are being discussed among people who are experts in specific areas before RFCs are getting written, before things are being proposed to the committee. So the committee will still act as a sort of arbiter of ultimate approval with the features, but we'll have these sort of smaller groups that can make more targeted decisions, participate in code reviews for their areas, and really just provide more expertise for these specific areas. And one of the great side effects of that is that because someone doesn't need to be an expert in all areas of PowerShell in order to be on one of these working groups, we think it's really going to open the door to allow more external community contributors to have some more formal authority within the PowerShell repository, where they can contribute to discussions in a more sort of formal way. Where their decisions hold some weight in terms of what kind of feature proposals are making it into PowerShell, but also that they're really able to sort of reduce some of the time that the committee is spending on some of the more nitty-gritty details happening in bugs and issues. So yeah, I think that covers the high-level basis. I'm trying to get a blog post out within the next week or so. To really highlight exactly what we're going to be doing with this. It is going to be an experimental kind of phase-in process, so bear with us as we kind of find our footing again with this, but it's something that we've been working on for a really long time in order to make sure that we get it right, and we're really excited to introduce it. So I don't know, Steve or maybe Jim or Dongbo on the committee, if you have anything you want to add there.
Yeah, I'll just add something quickly, which is like the key highlight here really is having these working groups means that the committee, which is a small set of folks, won't be the bottleneck for some of these decisions, right? So that we can actually make progress much sooner, have more experiments, get the user feedback, and all that good stuff. One other thing I'll just add about 7.2 is what I would like to do is actually have the teams probably spend less time on a bunch of new features, partly because 7.2 is an LTS, so we don't want to have a bunch of code churn, but also have time for the team to spend on community contributions instead of our own contributions. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. I'm typing up the notes here. Maybe can I skip this around here so I can type up the notes? Maybe we can switch over to PS Readline List View now.
Sure, I'd love to.
Awesome.
Let me get my screen shared here.
I'm gonna keep typing these up as you take over there. Let me know when you've got control.
I believe I have control. If somebody can tell me whether they can see my screen.
Yep.
Great. So hello, everyone. I wanted to briefly show you what we're working on for the 7.1 release when it comes to Predictive Intellisense, if you hadn't seen it before, and how to offer some feedback. And I wanted to give you a look into our future moving forward with our future previews after release. And this is where I think you might find this a little bit interesting if you've already seen predictions before. It's a new view. So first of all, for everybody who hasn't seen it before, tab completion has accelerated the success of both new and experienced PowerShell users. I mean, when you think about it, new users get the benefit of seeing the available commandlets and parameters, and we all get the benefit of being able to do less typing and with a lot less mistakes, which is certainly one of my things. Predictive Intellisense is in addition to this. It's something that we've been working on that will give you even more help with this discovery and reduction in typing and acceleration. And I'm going to show you how to get this if you haven't already had a chance to play with it. And I've already got the feature enabled, and I'll show you this in a second. But first of all, start process. I've got the website here. If you want to download PowerShell 7, this works with PowerShell 7.0 and above. I, of course, recommend that you grab the latest and greatest preview, which I thought would be really cool, flipping up on my screen, but it flipped up on the wrong screen. So so much for that. At any rate, the other thing that you're going to need is a beta of PS Readline to view predictions. And if you do a find module, And by the way, have you noticed you're seeing the predictions now, and it's really reducing my typing. My predictions are colored in a, well, kind of a hunter green color. The default color is a light gray color, very similar to Z-shell or fish, if you've seen those. I've changed mine to green because it's easier for me to see it. And in this case, in order to get this experience, you need PowerShell 7 and this beta, 210 beta 2 of PS Readline, which you can get from the gallery. Now, once you have that, and as you can see, I'm already experiencing Predictive Intellisense, there's a sample that comes with this that you can check out the sample so that you can see what you can add to your profile to enable it. This is disabled by default so that we don't confuse new people with their screens flipping around. And you can go into your profile and enable it. So I encourage you to take a look at that example that's out there so that you can see how to get it turned on. Now, once it's turned on and you're working, life is pretty good. You can see I start to get some predictions. You can accept these predictions. You can go in and edit and change these predictions. And these predictions are coming from your history, from the PS Readline history, not the original PowerShell history that was only per session. This is your PS Readline history that covers all your sessions. So it's very valuable. And I'll show you an example of that in just 1 second. And a matter of fact, well, I'll tell you what, let me just show you how cool this is getting now. First of all, grab PowerShell 7 and grab PS Readline, and you can start to work with these historical predictions. But let me show you where we're going to go in the future, what we're thinking about, and what we hope to hear from you as far as comments go. In the future, we're modifying this a little bit. And let me give you the scenario that I ran into where this really helped. First of all, you can tell from me running a prediction, this is kind of nice. It reduces my typing. It quickly lets me see what I want. And if it is what I want, I can accept it really fast. However, the scenario I was running into was recently, I spent a lot of time with Get, and I was recently doing something where I was making some edits. I needed to stash those edits, go do something else, come back later, and those stashed edits back up. And, well, I forgot. Well, what usually this means is if I forget the syntax to a command, I forget how to get the stash back. That means that it's not just, well, let me think about this. No, I have to open up a browser, go out, find it, come back. By the time I'm done, I've probably lost a good 5 to 10 minutes, of course, because I've been yelling and screaming at myself for forgetting it. With Predictive Intellisense, you might say, well, hey, this is great. It tells me what I wanted, but this isn't the stash command. What I might like instead is a view that shows me my history and things that are very similar to what I've typed to make it easier to find and select. So this is our new list view. If I press F2, now I get a list view from my history. You can tell by the right, it's coming from my history because it says history. And I can arrow down and find the command that I wanted. Oh, there's that stash command. And I can apply it. Now, here's the interesting thing. Maybe I need to add more to this, or I want to change it. You can just press F2, go right back to the line and start all over. And if you're working with this line, notice I still get a prediction. So this works out really well if you kind of think about it. If I start typing get child item, I hit F2, I get a list of the child items that I've been working with. And if I go down, I pick one, I can accept it, I can strike enter and immediately execute this. Or I can hit F2, go back and continue. My predictions will still continue to work for me. And as I start making changes, yeah, that fit it in. But now I'm going to do, whoops, I don't know what I hit. I must have hit enter. But you kind of get the idea here. So the ability to switch to F2 and start to see the things that you've typed, that can be real beneficial. But I want to show you one last thing. We've talked about this in the past. And as we work towards our future previews, you'll start to see more about this. Also, besides historical plugins, there may be additional plugins that are available to you. As an example, one of our teams here, the Azure PowerShell team, is working on a machine learning predictive plugin that might help you with Azure PowerShell. So pretend for a second that I wanted to make a new VM. Now, I've typed this before, so I'm going to have stuff from my history. But if I have the predictor for Azure PowerShell, as I start to type new AZVM, you'll see down here that the AZ predictor has already predicted it for me. And what they're predicting is the required parameters that I'm going to need to get a VM up and running. So somebody that's new to this may be looking at this going, well, I figured I had to give it a name, but I didn't realize I had to give it a location or a resource. Oh, I've got resource group up. You can let me get the AZVM in here, but you kind of get the idea. So new AZVM, and I go down here. So you might say, yeah, I didn't realize I needed to create a resource group and that kind of thing. So this helps you identify the kind of things that you need. And of course, you can always go through and edit and put in the credentials or whatever it is, the arguments that you need. So we really think this F2 view, this list view that we have, and let me just bring it back up, might be really helpful to you, especially when you have multiple predictors. Now, just keep in mind that this is all configurable, both the colors of the prediction, whether you have a predictor, whether you're just using history and plugins or history only, and you can disable all of this if this is not part of the experience that you want. So we look forward to your feedback. We'll be getting an RFC out for our original predictor for the release for 7.1 here just after Ignite, towards the beginning of October, so that you'll be able to give us some feedback on that, and then look forward to the future as we move forward. And we certainly want your feedback on list view and this as we move forward. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jason.
Sure.
Go ahead and take back over. Really excited about Predictive Intellisense. It's going to be awesome, and we will definitely be opening that up as it's available for more people to write their own predictors, for other examples. So one of the things, Jason, I just want to make sure we get the link to that profile example at some point added to the notes before I get them uploaded here.
Oh, sure.
Awesome. So wanted to provide a quick update, a little shift of gears on Ignite 2020. Ignite 2020 is next week. If you haven't registered already, hop online, go ahead and register. It's quick, easy, and free, and you can get access to a ton of awesome sessions that are going to be at Ignite. For PowerShell in particular, I did a PowerShell 7 talk with Jeffrey Snover, and Jason did a PowerShell Unplugged session with Jeffrey as well. Both of those will be breakout sessions available on demand, so you'll be able to watch the videos for those. There will also be 2 live Ask the Experts sessions that include members of the PowerShell team. So this is for those that are looking. This one is PowerShell and Linux in Azure. So it's sort of a more specific topic, and we're going to be with some folks as well that work in Azure Linux stuff. So we have a pretty large audience, but definitely hop in on that one. We've also got 3 PowerShell table topics, or they're calling them table topics, sometimes table talks, with community and PowerShell team sort of mixed panels. Many of those are already full, unfortunately, but we will try and get recordings available for those live sessions so that we can share with other folks, but really excited to see everyone there. If you have RSVP'd, make sure you attend, as there will not be any kind of wait list for those, unfortunately. And if you're not able to attend, please relinquish your RSVP so that others can. So that's Ignite. Anything to add, Sydney, Jason, anybody else on that? Danny, I missed on Ignite?
Not at all, but it's really cool. You want to see it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Come to these sessions, or at least view the sessions.
Awesome. All right, switching gears over to Sydney to talk about the gallery statistics.
Yeah, sure. So I wanted to acknowledge that the gallery statistics have been down for a bit over a week now, and give you just a quick update on sort of the status of our investigation there. So we have spent a bit of time looking into this and trying to identify where the issue is occurring. At this point, the update I can give is that we've identified that it's likely not coming from any of our Azure components and narrowed the scope of the investigation into our backend jobs, but we are still investigating that. And unfortunately, I don't have an ETA on when statistics will be back up. I will say that I do strongly empathize with other package owners, as I have also been a part of some packages that have been published recently that I would really love to know the statistics on. in terms of making business decisions on what to do next with those projects. So I'm hoping that the statistics will be up again in the near future, but yeah, no ETA at this point. And then similarly, we did get some reports earlier this week about some intermittent issues with the Powershell gallery availability. So we made some updates to the service yesterday afternoon. So if you are continue seeing those issues over the next couple of weeks, we'd love to hear from you again. So small update on that as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Awesome. Great. You want to switch over to PowerShell Get update?
Sure. So I feel like this is a reoccurring segment on the community call over the past 6+ months, but I do have some new updates on this project. So I believe last time we talked, the plan was to hopefully get PowerShell Get 3.0 into the 7.1 release. As Joey mentioned earlier in the call, we are very quickly approaching our first release candidate for 7.1. And so we have made the call that we want to push out PowerShell Get 3.0 into the 7.2 release. And the reasoning for this is to give ourselves more time to really build out the feature set, have a fully implemented testing or set of tests, and then also to get that user feedback. So our plan at this point is to ship PowerShell Get 3.0 along with the compatibility module for PowerShell Get, Compat PowerShell Get, beginning in the first preview release of 7.2. And so then this will give us plenty of time to really make sure 3.0 is of the highest quality by the time we get to the 7.2 GA timeframe. I did post a blog earlier this week on our latest preview release, Preview 10, and it also highlights a little bit more about the compatibility module, which is also available on GitHub and in the PowerShell gallery. So if you're excited about that, please feel free to install the compatibility module now, but that will be shipping in 7.2 timeframe in PowerShell. In addition to that, I guess we have done some extensive project planning in Milestone, planning in the PowerShell Get repository. So those should be completely up to date at this point. So look out for those projects and milestones if you're wondering where we're at in terms of scoping. And then I also published an update to the RFC for PowerShell Get earlier this week that also highlights and summarizes what's made it in and out of scope since we last had an RFC, or since I last updated the RFC, I guess. Do you see it there?
Yep.
Cool.
So this is the PowerShell Get 3.0 RFC. Definitely check this out. This is being kept up to date with new decisions that are being made. So Sydney did push some new stuff. It looks like here.
Yep.
And actually, I saw this one come across my screen the other day, and so I did want to go ahead and address this. I'm not thinking about this right now, and I don't think we've thought about this very deeply at the moment. Basically, the ask here is, hey, we're stuck with really old versions of PowerShell Get in Windows. Is there a plan to update Windows to use these new modules? For Windows PowerShell, the 3.0 will be Windows PowerShell compatible. It's something we definitely should look into. We haven't thought about it too hard. It's not impossible for us to ship things in Windows. That's really not the difficulty here. It's more around ensuring that folks who depend on this from a matter of stability and expecting PowerShell Get to work a certain way on Windows, and not wanting to sort of break that or introduce a side-by-side story that could be confusing or could break people. So our goal with Windows PowerShell has always been to make sure that platform remains stable for the folks that depend on it, and we don't want to break that contract too hard. So it's something we're going to have to think about a lot before we move forward there. But as Sydney mentioned here, definitely go as well to the Powershell Get repo. Check out the new milestones here. Sydney, you're saying the projects is updated here?
The projects, as well as the projects will show the preview releases we have planned in the future, and what issues are tied to that. And then we're using the 3.0 milestone as well as the vNext milestone to track the full list of issues for the release.
Awesome. Fantastic. Great. Then moving right along to secret management. Keep it rolling.
Alrighty. So yes, another reoccurring segment on the community call is our update on secret management. So just want to first thank everyone again for your patience on this project, and also your feedback over the last 9+ months on this effort. We did have a new release this week. So we published the blog post on that yesterday. So definitely check those out for a more in-depth look at what's new in the release and how to get started. But I'll do a quick demo here and explain a few of the changes. So I published a blog post sort of announcing the release. And then Paul also published a more design-focused blog that is going to be really useful if you are, for example, planning to author an extension. So let's see. Again, great. I believe I'm sharing my screen. Is that correct?
Yes, apologies. I see your screen. You might want to just tick it up 1 or 2 on the font, though.
Cool.
Awesome.
So, yes, new preview release of secret management with a couple of changes you're going to want to be aware of. So this is a major breaking change release. And the biggest thing you're going to want to be aware of is that we have removed having a default built-in vault. So what this means is if you had used previous versions of the module, you'll know that the module by default was hooked up with Credman, which worked as your default vault on Windows. We have removed that connection, so do take an effort to remove any secrets that you want before you update the module. Of course, if you don't, you can always revert. Your secrets aren't gone, they're still in Credman, but that's just something to be aware of. Anyways, so what you're going to want to do is install Secret Management, of course, pre-release, and then also install Secret Store. So what Secret Store is a new secret vault that we have built, and it is also in a preview state. And this vault is built on the .NET Crypto APIs. And so what this allows is for a flexible cross-platform vault that can be available anywhere PowerShell is available and be used specifically in scenarios where PowerShell is heavily used, like in automation and remoting, where maybe Windows Credman wasn't such a good fit. So once you have installed these 2 modules, you can go ahead and register Secret Store as your default vault. So you'll see the module name, Microsoft PowerShell Secret Store, and then I'm using this default vault parameter to set it as my default vault. From there, I can make this a little bit bigger. If I run get secret vault, you'll notice that I have this Secret Store vault here. I can run get secret info. So this command shows you your secret metadata. So you'll see that I have a secret here that I've called foo, stored as a secure string in Secret Store. So if I want to get this secret, I can run the get secret command on foo. And Secret Store by default does require a password. So the first time you use the Secret Store vault, it will prompt you to create a password, and then you can provide that to access your secrets. As noted in previous versions of this module, it's going to by default return as a secure string, but I can use the as plain text to get back the plain text version. I can also still use set secret to create secrets. So I'm going to say call this foo2 because I'm super creative. It can prompt me to create my secret. And now if I run get secret info, you'll see that both of these secrets are here. So that's just a really basic rundown of the module and sort of like what to expect now. Definitely recommend checking out the blog posts to get a more detailed approach, to also dig a little bit more into the scenarios we see. I'll also mention that a huge part of secret management is, of course, the Vault ecosystem. And so we hope that going forward, we can continue to grow that ecosystem so that you do have more integration points. Let's see. I guess the other thing I would mention for sure is just that at this point, we do believe, based on our scoping of the project, that secret management and secret store are considered feature complete. This isn't a hard and fast thing, but just to say that the timeline for us to GA is highly dependent on the feedback we receive from this release. So definitely now is the time to give it a go and give us any last feedback, any features that are missing, anything like that, so that we can plan out if we need more preview releases as we move towards a GA.
Awesome. Thanks, Sydney. I think up next we have notebooks, and I think Tyler was going to be providing an update on notebooks. Tyler, are you ready to take over?
Sure. Okay. Where is the share screen? There it is. Okay. Gosh, for a second there, I like totally.
It's only impossible to find when someone puts you on the spot and tells you to present.
So just a little bit of context on the PowerShell extension as a whole. So I've been like more or less contracted out recently to go help some folks in the Azure Arc team get some work done for some Ignite stuff. So I haven't had a whole lot of time to really sit down and focus on the extension. So what usually happens is I'll do some work for Arc, but there are these big waiting periods. So in that time, I kind of fill in by just kind of fiddling around with the extension. I figured I'd tackle a couple of issues with notebooks that came up in my quote-unquote spare time, and there are two that I've added to the notebook mode experience in the PowerShell extension. So the first one I want to show off is new Untitled notebooks.
Tyler, can you give everyone just a little bit of context on what notebooks are in the PowerShell extension for those that maybe don't know?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, these have been covered in multiple community calls, but just for context, a notebook is this concept of mixing both executable code and rich documentation in the form of Markdown. And the way that notebook mode works in the PowerShell extension that I'm about to show off is it takes your PS1 file, parses it, and renders it in this notebook UI experience for you to use. So let's go ahead and look at what that looks like. We'll start by one of the new features that were added, which is new Untitled Notebooks. So if I go new file here, and then I change the language to PowerShell, for example. So let's just say I have this is my untitled file, right? And we'll add a GCI there. Why not? And then maybe we'll do a for loop. Something like that. The collection can be get process. Why not? Obviously not very useful PowerShell code, but anyway, it's in my untitled file because I've been kind of, hacking together a script and running it in the integrated console below by selecting something and hitting F8. But so now notebook mode is, you can see this little button up here. If you click on it, it's going to render all of what you've seen in this notebook experience. So what you see here at the top is this is Markdown. So this is coming from the comment that you saw. And if I double click on that, I can change it and say, so we'll make this one a header, and then we'll also add some bold text as well, right? And then if I do Control Enter, then we see it's re-rendered. which is great. So then you can see I've got my code snippet here, and I can hit the play button, and it's actually going to run it in the integrated console below. So Untitled Notebooks didn't work in the previous version of the PowerShell extension because notebooks, the VS Code APIs weren't available yet, but now you can just use them just as you would any other file. The other thing I wanted to show off today was something called automatic notebooks, which is the concept of, and you might see one here in my Explorer here. I have a foo.notebook.ps1. It's still just a normal old PS1, but now when I click on it, it's going to automatically open in a notebook rather than having to say, click on this PS1 and then click on the show notebook mode button. So this, if you had a PS1 script that you like basically tailored for this notebook experience, you can just open it right then and there. You don't have to click the extra button. So that's just another way to like smoothly use this this notebook mode. I do want to point out one thing that I noticed that I'm working on. For starters, this experience is only offered in the PowerShell Preview extension, which you can get here. Just search for PowerShell Preview and you will find it in the extension marketplace. PowerShell Preview, there it is. And then also you need Visual Studio Code Insiders, which you can get at, I'm pretty sure the site is code.visualstudio.com/insiders, but they also have a link on their main website on how to get that. And that's what you need in order to actually use this notebook experience. I do want to call out though that I noticed something that showed up in yesterday's notebook, or yesterday's VS Code Insiders release. There used to be a button here that would disable the notebook mode and bring you back into the text, and that doesn't seem to be showing up today. And I filed an issue on VS Code, so I'll work with them to get that back. But in the meantime, you can just type disable, and there's a PowerShell Preview disable notebook mode option, and that'll bring you back to the actual script that you were using. So, so yeah, I mean, I hope that this helps get started with notebooks, and eventually the idea is that if you like this experience, you can take a look at the other notebook experiences that are much more richer with Dana Interactive, and we've got some blog posts on that as well. But that's
Tyler,
all.
just one thing to add really quick would be that if you want to have the button in your UI, there also is a feature flag for notebook mode that you're going to want to turn on in Insiders as well.
Or I'll keep talking until Joey starts talking. How's everybody's day? Is it good?
No, Sydney was just talking about the feature flag.
Uh-oh, that's not good.
You
talking?
Yeah, I think yeah, folks are talking. It's just I think you might have muted the sound. Can you hear us again? All right. Tyler's lost us, unfortunately.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear us?
I hit the mute button on accident. Oops.
Yep. Sydney was talking about the feature flag.
Oh, yes. Yeah, the feature flag. Did you already mention what it was?
Yeah, I just mentioned if you want the button for the notebook mode in the UI, there's a feature flag in settings.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, make sure to turn on the notebook mode UI feature flag. Great. So before we move on to Q&A, just want to make sure, does anybody else on the team have something that missed the agenda they might want to add? Great. We're going to hop into questions then. So I'm going to start right up at the top. We did see some of the discussion actually took place directly in this issue discussion. And I have not been watching the Q&A. Has anybody else been watching this? Just it looks like folks know that we're using the issue as the main sort of thing.
The live event Q&A has been answered, so we can visit that after we go through the GitHub one.
Great. So the first one here was a discussion topic around the separation of native commandlets into modules that are compatible with 5.1 and 7x. So I have some initial thoughts on this. Mainly that, this is something we've had a strong desire to do for a long time. You see modules that we initially kind of went down this path with, like the archive module, separated into their own repository and developed independently from PowerShell and shipped on the gallery and then sort of repackaged into PowerShell. PS readline operates this way, PowerShell Get operates this way, but we are in sort of this catch-22 with some of the stuff that's really integral to PowerShell itself, like for instance the JSON commandlets, and obviously this is something that we have a hard time breaking in the PowerShell package itself. And we want to, continue innovating for the folks that are upgrading PowerShell, and we don't necessarily want to park, something like the JSON commandlets at a specific version inside of PowerShell. But on the flip side, we want to be able to innovate outside of PowerShell and, move things forward without necessarily impacting the PowerShell package. So this is kind of the catch-22 that we're at. I think ultimately, we want all our modules to be able to, be downloaded from the gallery and upgraded independently in different versions, and that, you're not having to update PowerShell necessarily to get specific commandlets. But it's something that I think we're going to have to deal with on a case-by-case basis for different modules, and that will, take a while for us to sort of break those modules out. Steve, did you have separate thoughts on that?
No, I think that's really the direction we want to head, and a lot of this depends on users being comfortable with updating stuff off the gallery, which is why we're doing a lot of our new experimentation like secret management module and stuff like that in the gallery independent of PowerShell. The other thing I'll just add is, besides breaking out like utility management, potentially security, we also want to break those monolithic modules into sub-modules, if you will, because some people may just want like the web commandlets and JSON commandlets. So there will be some future discussions about that. I believe there's already some issues I had opened about some of that a while back, but hopefully we'll make some progress on that in the 7.2 timeframe.
Oh, sorry, I had the hardware mute there. Thanks, Steve. So there was another question around kept talking on this one. It was really around providing like .NET Core JSON APIs for folks that are using .NET hosted code. I think that that's something that we could theoretically do. I don't have any immediate opinions on that. It would, we have to discuss it in issues, and hopefully that's something that the new working group process can take care of. I think I'm going to let this speak for itself for folks interested in looking at that in more detail. Thank you, Rob, for back and forth there. Use .NET Runtime Dev Model. Steve, do you know about this one?
Which one are you talking about?
.NET Development Model.
You're talking about Ilya?
Yeah. So I think this one, very much is intended to be addressed by the working group aspect. We have talked to .NET pretty extensively about their dev process in building this one. But I would love to look at this in more detail, especially reconciled with exactly what we said with the working groups. So I think I'll go through this. Thank you, Ilya, for providing this. But I think it really is at a high level. Yes, this is the intent with what we're doing around working groups. So there's an issue comment on removing the requirement for curly braces when using the null conditional operator. This is understandably a frustration. Around the question mark. I have not read Michael Clement's entire post here, but we basically said that, hey, we don't want to. We're going to require the use of curly braces, for variable names, so that you have to prepend those curly braces with a question mark in order to use this new null conditional member access operator. A lot of folks have said that shorthand is less useful to them because it requires these, 2 extra curly braces. But essentially, we looked at, a large number of scripts. We have a script corpus at akms/PowerShell corpus, and it showed that a number of folks are in fact using question marks in variable names. And given that we don't want to break those people, then we we decided to make that call, but it looks like M. Clement is calling into question whether or not that analysis, is actually accurate about that corpus. And so, it's possible that we can look back at this, but it's not something that I've given a ton of thought yet. So, I don't know, Steve, did you have thoughts there as well?
Yeah, let me just add, like when we made that decision to make it non-experimental, we also recognize that in the future, if we decide to not require the braces, it would not be a breaking change to the current feature, right? It'd be additive. It would be a breaking change in itself, but not because of that feature. So we can still reconsider that if we do some more research. The other thing I just want to call out is I see a lot of people not liking the braces, but people need to understand, like the requirement for the braces is not something that was introduced because of that feature. This is an existing PowerShell feature where if you have a variable in a string and you want to make sure that subsequent text isn't interpreted as part of that variable name, then you would use braces there anyway. So it's not a concept. I get that some people don't like it aesthetically. We'll revisit it sometime in the future. Again, there's a lot of stuff that we want to do, so I don't know how high a priority this one is going to be honest.
Awesome. Somebody is really hammering their keyboard home. Not sure who that is, but make sure you folks are on mute. I don't have to call anybody out. There's nothing.
It's all right.
Cool. So the next question here was around .NET MAUI. And maybe actually now that we've gotten Tyler muted, maybe Tyler, do you know anything about this MAUI, or is there anybody else that's looked into this? It looks like
So MAUI is really kind of like .NET's way forward for like WPF type of GUIs cross-platform. I think for me, there's kind of like two paths, and they're not necessarily mutually exclusive that we can take for cross-platform GUIs. My preference still is to kind of invest more in the GUI CS console GUI stuff, because the benefit there really is that it works in Cloud Shell, works in VS Code, works cross-platform, works across SSH, So, but I get that some people want the more rich GUI experience as well. And I think that .NET MAUI is still something that is experimental, and I don't know if they're planning on taking it to GA in .NET 6 timeframe, but it's something we could look at, and potentially, depending on how big a change is, maybe the community can help out port like Outgrid View or something like that.
Yeah, my take here is that this is probably not something that we want to include in PowerShell itself, given that it's likely fairly large. So the question is, for folks that do want to take a dependency on it, how can we make it easier for module authors to make sure that they're not, duplicating tons of .NET assembly code within their individual modules? So, in other words, can someone install like a .NET MAUI pack, or just simply add a reference to NuGet.org to pull that in, and then have sort of shared set of assemblies that PowerShell can access, so that we're not duplicating all of that on disk. But that's something that we've had a strong desire to do in general for a long time, and maybe this is an opportunity to look closer at that.
So I think that, we have talked about that for a while, and I think it's something we may visit in Powershell Get 3.1 timeframe, whenever that happens, so that you can actually declare NuGet.org dependencies on your module, and we would automatically resolve those. And basically, we end up with like a GAC light situation. So we need to kind of think through the implications of all that. But yeah.
Awesome. Apologies, just making sure we get the notes there. PowerShell's updatable help is powerful but underutilized features. One of the blockers is hosting the help info XML and cap files on a web server. Could PowerShell Gallery be updated to allow module authors to host these files? This is something we've thought about in the past. I think, it's not something we've investigated extensively. It's not something that's on our immediate docket, but Jason's been doing a ton of work internally with some of the folks that host the PowerShell documentation content across the company in terms of automating that work, and it is certainly something that we could think about or start discussing the feasibility of, once sort of Microsoft documentation is in a stable state, about how we might be able to make it, cheaper and easier for module authors, especially those using Platypus already and including Platypus generated documentation in their modules, to use updatable help. So, but that being said, we've found that typically module authors, it's fairly easy for them to update the module in order to update the documentation itself. Usually modules get sort of shipped, by a smaller number of folks. Updatable help was really around, hey, what about these situations where documentation is huge and extensive and the modules are not getting updated on a frequent basis, for example, in Windows, right? So if I'm constantly, updating the docs, but my Windows modules are stuck on, a particular version of Windows, I'm not going to be getting any updates to that. And so we sort of created a side mechanism to do updatable help. But if I've got all of the help available to me directly in the module, then, I'm going to get help anyway. And, if I initially acquired my module via PowerShell Gallery, then I probably don't have a problem continuing to update it from the PowerShell Gallery. So, the utility of this sort of does diminish in a world where you can update your modules very, very easily. Additionally, updatable help was sort of designed around the idea of localization. And, I have not seen a strong desire from the community to do heavily localized documentation for their modules. But if that's something that I'm missing, please, make sure to file an issue and let us know that this is something that could be helpful to you. Jason, did I miss anything there?
No, you got it all. That sounds good.
Awesome. Great. Discuss the path to resolution of 1995. Steve, do you want to talk about this one a little bit, maybe, and the fact that we're kind of, I think we're looking at the invoke or start process arg list kind of stuff. And
yeah, we're going to run out of time if I talk too much about this particular one. So let me just say, we heard the feedback. We do have a couple of PRs open, one from Jim and one from someone in the community, to kind of tackle some of this. And we do recognize this is a real world scenario problem. Independent of that, we did respond yesterday. We had a committee meeting yesterday looking at start process with the argument list. So we did have an agreement that it would make sense to support the ability to just pass the array of arguments directly rather than going to the concatenation model, but we still hope that some of the community can come up with a good switch name for that. So take a look at that issue. Let me see what else here. Some specific details. Yeah, so there's this experimental feature that's going to stay experimental in 7.1. I think that Mike Clement called out some specific issues here, so we'll take a look at that in detail outside of this meeting.
Awesome. What is the plan for PowerShell standard with .NET 5 since the .NET standard approach is changing? Also, I feel like PS standard still includes a ton of DLLs that have to be manually removed for Windows PowerShell for those modules to import correctly with add type. I can't speak to that latter half. It's possible that, Jim, maybe you have a little bit more details there on that. I didn't know about anything needing to be manually removed, but in terms of the overall future of .NET standard, I think .NET 5, and I read this blog post last night, actually. I think it's primarily around sort of enabling like multi-framework projects to continue to work. And when I say framework, like lowercase f. So it's like, hey, if you're using all the Xamarin and .NET 5 and all these other kind of modern runtimes, targeting a library like .NET 5.0 makes sense because you want it to work across all those. .NET Standard 2.0 was really the last one that locked on .NET Framework, and we only have .NET Framework and .NET Core based PowerShells. So it's not a world where there's a number of new PowerShells that we need to stay common with in the future. We're really looking more towards a sort of fixed forward model where you're 7.0, 7.1, 7.2. You're going to target one of these as sort of a minimum version, and then everything should stay forward compatible from there. So I don't think we really have any new PowerShell standard coming out. If there are fixes to be made in the existing one, then we should make those. But it's sort of commonality with Windows PowerShell 5.1 and PowerShell Core 6.2 or whatever it is that we're not going to be adding anything to Windows PowerShell that's going to grow that set.
That's correct.
And then any updates on assembly load context work with side-by-side issues between modules? Maybe, I don't know who ended up, this is like the module isolation kind of work.
Yeah. I don't know if Dongo wants to, is he here? I thought he was, oh, there he is.
Dongo, are you okay speaking to this one a little bit? Or maybe Rob to the, what we did in VS Code or the VS Code extension? I'm not sure.
I can briefly talk about it. We have a RFC published a while back, but it was withdrawn at the time because of concern of a type identity issue. But we will revisit the RFC by having a hybrided solution involving first depends on the Powershell Get 3 to do the dependency resolution, and then probably the type we can have a more restricted way to adopt this semi-low context concept in PowerShell module, so that the type identity will not be a problem. So it's like there's a plan to have a better plan to have a better design on how to adopt this semi-low context concept into PowerShell module isolation.
Yeah, let me just add, this is a very hard problem, and it is going to be a breaking change for both users and module authors. So some of the reason it's taken a while is that we're trying to figure out what is the best experience for both, so that they understand what happens if you have a module that is using a separate module assembly load context. But something will hopefully come in sooner than later. There's a lot of stuff I want to come in sooner than later, but it's hard.
Awesome. I know we're coming up on time pretty hard here, but were there any highlights from the Q&A that we wanted to repeat or? Thank you, Justin. I have my Yeti Blue here. I appreciate the ASMR. Kudos.
By the way, I've ordered one, but I'll have it in time by the next community call, hopefully.
We'll finally get rid of Steve's MacBook buzz. So we've looked at, recording committee meetings in the past. It's very difficult, and something we realize is that there really is still room for internal communication and private communication. It's not even a Microsoft-specific thing. It's not an NDA. It's just that people can really speak freely about, kind of what their opinion is on the engine, and then translating that free opinion into something that's a little more tenable. So. Today, no, but working groups, there's a potential there for them to be more open and transparent with the way that they operate. Thank you for the link here. Yes, that is correct. The on-demand sessions are not currently listed in the catalog, but they should be soon. And Joel, this one did not get answered. He's just saying strongly suggest PS Get 3 in the base Windows install. I would love that too, but we do have to look at what that transition looks like. I don't see any other major feedbacks. Looks like people are really excited about the list view. That's fantastic. We're excited about it as well. Great. Okay. So I think that covers everything. So I want to thank everybody for joining. We will get the notes up ASAP along with the recording. We'll see you at Ignite next week, hopefully. And thanks again to everybody. We'll, third Thursday of every month, we'll see you for the next one, if not at Ignite. And thanks again for joining. Appreciate it, everybody.
All right, thanks, everyone.